So let's talk about 7 ways that you can instantly improve your studio lighting. Having good lighting in your studio is not as complicated as it might sound, and you don't need a lot of lights. In fact, really you just need one main light, and that's known as your key light. And tip number 1 is make sure you put your key light in the right position. Now, one of the mistakes a lot of people do is they often put their key light at eye level, right here. They don't have their key light up and pointing down at an angle. Other times, people will put the key light facing straight on, and they won't have it at an angle. And now, in order to properly place your key light, you want to have it at an approximate 45-degree angle to you. So if you're facing the camera straight right here, you want to have your key light at a 45-degree angle this way. So in order to figure out that 45-degree angle, you want to have the one end of the 90 degrees here and the other end here, approximately. And then the 45 is going to be right in the middle where those meet. And what the 45-degree angle with the lighting does is it gives that nice lighting on one side of your face, and then the other face is going to be a little bit more in the shadows and not lit quite as much. This gives nice depth to your video while you're speaking, and it's generally great lighting to work with. In addition, you want to have your light a little bit above you and pointing downward at a diagonal. This is especially important if you wear glasses, because you can get that glare in your glasses if you don't have the light at the correct angle. So that's super important for glasses, but it's also important for good lighting. It helps make your head and body stand out better from your background. Number 2, make sure to set your lighting to the right temperature. Now, most light kits, including this one right here from GVM, which I absolutely love, by the way. This is a great light kit and softbox. I'll link to it in the description below. But this kit right here allows you to adjust your light temperature in a host of different ways. And this light even has Bluetooth connectivity and an app to use. 5600K is kind of a general standard of the best light temperature to use for your studio. And to be clear, it's not referring to any lights you may have behind you. That light is definitely not 5600K, but the key light is 5600K. In addition, some of the blue lighting I have behind me is also not 5600K. In order to set my light to 5600K, I can either adjust it on the back of the light, or I can bring up the GVM 2 LED app. And when you click on the center button, you've got a whole bunch of different options. You've got tungsten, where you can do some really orange lighting like that. You can also do sodium lamp. You can do candle, a whole bunch of options on here. And of course, you can manually adjust the color temperature as well. This particular light kit does have the HMI 5600K, so it allows me to set that instantly and quickly. But for this particular light kit, you can go all the way down to 2700K, and then you can go all the way up to 6800K. But for good lighting, I recommend doing 5600K. That's generally going to look best, and that's going to most mimic the color of daylight outside on the average day. Now, tip number 3 is really important. You want to make sure that the color temperature on your camera that you're filming with matches the color temperature that you have your key light set to. So in this case, all I need to do is I need to make sure the white balance on my Sony a7S III is set to a manual white balance of 5600K. If the white balance on your camera and the white balance up here do not match, your footage is going to look weird and the colors are going to look off. So it is important to make sure the white balances match. On most cameras, it's very easy to set the white balance manually, and you don't want to stick with auto either. Auto will get it right some of the time, but auto can also switch back and forth and it can change on you. Even if it's just a subtle change like 5550 or 5650, it's still going to look weird if it's changing on you. So you want to have a static white balance. So tip number 4, this may seem obvious, but make sure your key light is not too bright. So the way I recommend setting this properly is I recommend having your key light off initially and just having your background lights on. When you do that, you can then get everything adjusted on your camera. In my case, I have the shutter speed adjusted to 1/50 because I'm filming in 24 frames per second. And then I have my aperture set to 2.8 and I have my ISO set to 100. Now, when I do that before turning on the key light, my frame is super underexposed. It's about -1.7. But when I turn on the key light, I then want to adjust that until my EV comp is right about 0.0. I want to get as close to balance with the exposure as possible. Now, in the case of this light and the way I have it placed, in order to balance that exposure, I have to go to about 18% for the brightness of this light. That gives me the balanced exposure that I'm going for. This light, of course, can go way brighter. And the only reason you're going to need a lot brighter than that is if the light is further away. But generally, you want to have the light as close as possible to you. And I'm going to talk about that in a moment. But yes, it's very important to make sure your key light is not too bright. If it is, your footage is going to be way overexposed and you're going to see spots for a while. So make sure to have your key light at the proper brightness. Tip number 5, use a softbox for your light. Without a softbox, your light is going to be very harsh and very sharp, and it's not going to look great. But a softbox, as the name indicates, helps give your light a much softer appearance and it looks a lot better. Your lighting will look a lot smoother, a lot less sharp and harsh, and it's a much more appealing lighting experience. Tip number 6, bring the softbox as close as possible to your face without it showing in the frame of the camera. So the closer it is to your face, the softer the lighting is going to appear. And the further away it is, the harsher the lighting is going to appear. So you maximize the softbox by having it as close as possible to you. Basically, you want this as close to your face as possible without having it in your frame. So right now, I have this softbox about 2 feet away from me. It's just off this corner of the camera right here. And tip number 7, beware of unintended light sources. Now, depending on where you're filming inside, you could be in a room that has windows outside that are letting in natural lighting, or you could have some type of overhead lighting. Regardless, if you have those other sources of lighting, you want to minimize or prevent those as much as possible. Ideally, it's best to be in a dark room with no windows or to film at nighttime. Either one is a great scenario because then you have full control over your lighting. You can get your exposure just the way you want it. You don't have other light sources that are going to sneak in and mess that up on you. So make sure to only have intentional lighting in your studio for the very best lighting experience. And if you're looking for a great quality studio light for a great price, I highly recommend checking out this light from GVM. I've linked to the kit that I own in the description below. GVM provides a great quality product for a great price, and I love the value of this light and softbox kit.